You're live.
Yeah. So this is the conference committee on the T-bill, and we are all here, and it is Tuesday, and what's today, the 26th, 5th, 6th, and we're here with Damian Leonard, and let's go through the comparison.
Okay. Morning, for the record, I'm Damian Leonard from the Office of Legislative Counsel. So last night I went through the two bills. I put them through a compare document to make sure I caught everything. Here are the remaining differences between the two on mileage-based user fee. One thing that's not noted here is that the Senate has its findings section.
Yeah.
But these are just the substantive differences. So the House proposes just payment at the end of the reporting period, so the annual payment option. The Senate has 4 payment options: annual, pay-as-you-go, estimated, and flat rate. For the House, because there's only one payment option, all vehicles are subject to that. With the Senate, because there's multiple payment options, new vehicles are permitted to use the pay-as-you-go, estimated, or flat rate options in the first year. And then with the default rate, the two are the same except for the time limit to obtain an inspection if you've forgotten to get your inspection. So both require an inspection within a reasonable period of time after the inspection is due. And then if you have not gotten your car inspected by the time you get to registration renewal, the Senate allows 90 days to obtain an inspection. And then if you show less mileage than the amount you paid for to get a credit against your future MBUF, the House is proposing 45 days, but otherwise identical. The transition period is the language is the same except for the payment options. So the Senate has 2 payment options, the House has 1. The House has just the annual payment, the Senate does annual payment or flat fee option. In both cases, you're paying a road usage charge up front and then receiving a credit against your amount. If you choose the flat fee, your road usage charge can cover the full flat fee or half the flat fee. Outreach and education and user feedback are the same except for minor wording differences in there. The transition plan and reports are the same except that or are very similar except that the Senate has been updated to limit expansion to just plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. And then finally, the House has a report on evaluating potential fees on public EV charging. The Senate proposal does not have that. And so already you've, I think, eliminated 3 or 4 differences between the 2 bills as the drafts have moved closer together. And this is what remains. Everything else that was on the first version of this sort of comparison has been resolved between the bodies and the other issue areas.
I mean, I guess the first one being the 90 days, we just thought that was a lot of time. Somebody to go in and get it being important. You can draw the line in the sand or anything, or we're just trying to find something that was, reasonable at the same time, not excessive where people can,
I think the biggest issue in here between us, will speak without is the amount of different ways to take it.
Yeah.
And the 3 of us haven't had a chance to really talk about that. So we'll that will probably be quite frankly, if you come your way on that, some of these other things you may not give up on, please.
I think from our side on
options. We want to have options for people. We were just looking to like, for the first year, just, keep it simple and then sort of have to learn a little more, what would work best. And I, it's with too many options or a number of options, there'll be more confusion. Just try to, this first go around, just keep it simple, get it working, and then as we look forward to expanding it at some point.
David, I don't know if you want to pull up Axel, Representative Walker, to see if the sort of the intent was, there's quite a few pages on there.
Yes.
So we can sort out, or I mean, it is a different place.
I thought our flat rate was at the beginning of the sliding periods.
Yes.
The way it's written right now, it is at the end of the reporting period. It could easily be changed to the beginning of the period. So
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
the way the flat rate is written now, it is at the end of the reporting period. It could easily be changed to the beginning of the reporting period. So the findings are behind me. They talk about the adoption of gas tax in Vermont. And how at that time, because of the limitations on, or the very small difference in fuel economy between vehicles, it was essentially a usage tax. Since then, as we're all familiar with, the vehicles have, the variety has expanded greatly. Fuel economy varies significantly from one vehicle to another. As well as in the last few decades, improvements in fuel efficiency have just resulted in less consumption of fuel. And then most recently, with the advent of battery electric vehicles, which don't require fuel at all, we have vehicles on Vermont's roads that until this past year were not paying for their usage of the roads in the same way that other vehicles were, and still the $89 infrastructure fee doesn't cover the average mileage for a driver. And then it talks about how a mileage-based user fee imposes a per mile fee and ensures that owners and lessees of vehicles contribute to the transportation fund in an equitable manner.
I'm sorry, could you back up to 11-12 for a second?
Yeah.
Line 12. Right there, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Yep. And then points to the stagnant fuel tax revenues from the reduced fuel consumption and unchanged gasoline and diesel tax rates that have not kept up with inflation. And then also points to demographic constraints and changes in vehicle ownership and usage that have limited the growth of fee revenues. These are things like revenues from registrations of vehicles, purchase and use tax, etc. Just because Vermont is not growing as a state. And with COVID too, we've also seen less need for 2 or 3 vehicle households because some people are working from home. And then the language in 12 cites the consensus revenue forecast estimate of 1.33% compound annual growth in the T fund over the next 5 years, compared to highway construction costs, which over the past 5 years have increased by 62%. And then it provides that the intent of the General Assembly is to implement a mileage-based user fee for battery electric vehicles, which will replace the existing infrastructure fee to ensure that owners and lessees of battery electric vehicles contribute to the transportation fund in an amount that reflects the annual miles traveled by each vehicle. This language here, 13 through 17, is very similar to what's in the purpose statement for the MBUF in the construct that passed from the House earlier this session. And then the remaining portions of the intent that were in the Senate version have been struck since they talk about expanding in later years. And this current version limits the expansion to looking at possible expansion to plug-in hybrids in future years.
Was that it?
That's
Oh, I think
yeah,
I went
for the
there.
findings and intent.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where we agreed on or didn't on that. I certainly can understand that. One of the things that we spent a significant amount of time on in the committee is that's also dramatically impacted this revenue situation is a substantial change or the results of enforcement. We've seen, the amount of interaction between the police, the state police in particular, or I took testimony on, found out so dramatically that the literally 3 million plus per year in revenues on enforcement that do not happen, that we have 500,000 registered vehicles, but only 400,000 or dropping inspections. If certainly vehicles and the behaviors of people have changed things, so has behaviors in other areas. The only problem with intent is you can't possibly cover everything, but there is a significant impact, especially the cumulative impact of these changes where we're 3 million, the T fund would survive a year without, but 3 million plus 3 million plus 3 million. There has been a massive change in Vermont behavior in relation to the T bill outside of just the gas. I don't know how that would or wouldn't be in there, but I would say that we spent a fair amount of time in the committee recognizing how many fees, how many interactions, how many tickets, how many now we're seeing a drop in renewed driver's licenses. That's a scary direction. So, and what that implies for uninsured vehicles, uninspected vehicles, non-licensed drivers, and the lack of enforcement where we're at 1/3 of the interactions that we were at before. Anyway, I don't want to sidetrack it too much longer, but there's a significant change in behavior in those. You take $1 million for inspection fees that aren't happening. You take $3 million enforcement fees that aren't happening. You see a drop in driver's license avenues to have. Now you're talking $4 and $5 million a year, which stacked up after 3 or 4 years is another bridge and another X number of miles that we don't have. Anyway, under intent, I don't know if that's our intent, but under findings, we are finding there's a significant issue there. If there's a 1 sentence, 2 sentence piece, if we have time, I would certainly like to highlight that. That's something our committee should we return back into similar positions. We're going to spend more time on next year.
I think that I'm seeing nods at head, and I think you came up with a line or two with that to add to the intent would be totally me.
Thank you.
And sort of just to add to that, we were taking testimony on the fact that battery electric vehicles were going to have to show they had their inspection to get registered. That's sort of a new check. And, our committee was like, well, we should do that for all vehicles. And basically the testimony was concerned that people would stop registering the vehicles if they,
I think they already done it.
Yeah, yeah. So this is definitely an issue that I think over time needs to be, be looked at.
I would just say in the intent, because this is a sea change in the way that we do stuff. The feeling amongst Senate transportation particularly was that some intent language would help explain why we're doing this. So we tried to stick to just facts.
And just the related to the amount-based user fee. We didn't put any time into findings, but that's something that I appreciate Representative Couch. It's definitely we did consider throwing that in that set. We didn't take that testimony.
If you could,
About requiring that inspection for all vehicles on registration.
if you could come up with a couple lines, I think we'd be.
Especially if we make improvements to the inspection process, or DMV does.
Then I just wanted to add, thank you. So we talked about a little bit about the reduction in enforcement. It's great that you did more of that. We looked at it in terms of safety also, so that might be something to put in your language.
There's a lot of and the super speeder discussions and the amount of pay. There's a lot. And what we should may or may not be able to do next. Later. I think it's the next step. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
We need to talk about the methods of payment amongst ourselves and then we can get back. to you. I think methods of payment, whether it's 45 or 90 or whether we split the difference. It seems to be the only area. And we breeze by the idea of the report. I don't think any of us are opposed to that, but we need to talk.
Or related to electricity.
Yeah.
Charging. Half.
Yep.
Okay. Sales tax.
Yeah, just sort of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
It certainly caused some reactions in other parts of the building, but it isn't a bad idea to let people know we need to look at it.
So we're gonna need a little time to talk. What's your schedules?
Is that, we're down to that level? That's where we're at? That's, in my,
Yeah,
That
Yeah.
1.7, but that down will fall.
that's based on what else happens elsewhere.
Our understanding.
Yeah.
If it goes to next leveling or.
yeah, I think you.
I think that,
I think if you're conferees, on a big bill would just say yes, it's up to you guys.
Okay,
And I see that you switched to covered vehicle, but I can't remember what you guys said would be the covered vehicles.
If the House version was BEVs.
No, I know
Senate
that
version
word
was-
change, but what are you, did you switch to plug-in hybrids or still just?
no, just EVs. Yeah, we were EVs. Just my understanding is that you wanted to transition to just plug in hybrids, but that would be like a check back where it'd be affirmative vote on this. Right.
well, the amount of things you guys have going on.
Well, and I think,
One
and I
small-
think that as they adjust the computer system to two battery electric vehicles, I mean, I think they're gonna be looking at how to, what's the process to calculate the mileage and do that. So I think it'll be, in much better shape to move forward into the future.
To answer your other question, well, thank you. We have House at floor at 10, and we have a Senate further proposal amendment on miscellaneous motor vehicles bill to hear in committee. And then we have the afternoon session. So we should certainly in that lunchtime, in that lunchtime time, we have time between now and depending on when that is, time before 10. And then we have we have time before the 1 o'clock. It's still 1 o'clock. Before the 1 o'clock floor.
Budget it's gonna be 9:30 and then again at 1:15.
And we're on the floor again.
And we'll go to the education bill, so it might take a while.
So maybe, well, I don't know if it's gonna take a while,
Well,
maybe if we can at 12:30 or.
Why don't we try
people
to,
know there's not really an opportunity to changes to that.
if,
Okay.
why don't we plan on,
Everybody wants to make a speech.
why
right?
don't we plan on 12:30? And, if we get a break and there's something before that.
Yeah.
We'll have Megan get a hold of you
Excellent. Thank you very much.
and we'll
Thank you all
talk
for
about,
your,
and we'll talk about this and.
we appreciate your flexibility. last
Yeah,
night.
I just want to bring up, because we're fine with taxing the rental cars, EVs. But was there an issue of not doing that? Or no, complications? I thought when you testified, I just wanted to make sure that there was we're making it worse by not taxing them.
That,
Yeah. I just wanted to get that, because we're fine getting rid of it, but I think Ways and Means told us that it might be a bigger headache. Not doing it.
Sure, Christopher, Joint Fiscal, my recollection of the discussion was, and this was a few months ago, was that there was some concern that not including a provision for short-term rentals that was administratively feasible could cause, short-term rental fully electric vehicles to be registered out of state to avoid this, because it would be very onerous, if not impossible, to comply with it. And I think there was some concern about creating a system where you sort of know on the outset that there's that wrinkle. Having said that, it then came out that there's very, very few vehicles that are fully electric in the state. So I think it's sort of a question of whether the juice is worth the squeeze and spending the money to set something up initially for a relatively small universe of vehicles.
Okay, we're fine anyway. I just want to make sure we're ahead of things.
Well, but we'll talk about it, but
Yeah,
personally, that sounds like, we can handle that.
Yeah.
Since we got to little thing, not little, but other, the date on the bonding reporting, when the agency was gonna deliver the piece, did that get settled last Friday afternoon?
I thought
Yeah.
The date, okay.
that proposal was on the table and.
we agree with
We got a date of February or whatever it ended up being.
January.
January.
Yeah.
Okay, I wanna make sure we're all set there. I missed that part, my bad. Okay, perfect.
Why don't we plan on 12:30, and unless you hear from us, that's some time before that.
Okay,
Okay,